but he has some more things to say on these subjects. Some learned men declare that all kinds of fruitive activities should be given up as faulty. Yet other sages maintain that acts of sacrifice, charity, and penance should never be abandoned. O best of the Bharatas, now hear my judgment about renunciation, O tiger among men. Renunciation is declared in the scriptures to be of three kinds. So as you probably are thinking, three kinds indicates the three modes of nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance, which Krishna has been describing throughout this Bhagavad Gita, especially in chapters 14, 16, and 17. Acts of sacrifice, charity, and penance are not to be given up. They must be performed. Indeed, sacrifice, charity, and penance purify even the great souls. So here Krishna has finally given his opinion, and we should take Krishna's opinion as final, because as we have learned here in Bhagavad Gita, he is the God of all gods. He is the cause of all causes. He has no origin other than himself. So who can give us a better opinion than Krishna? All these activities should be performed without attachment or any expectation of result. They should be performed as a matter of duty. That is my final opinion. So again, Krishna is emphasizing the importance of fostering the mode of goodness, because by the mode of goodness, one can eventually become liberated by a gradual process, whereas living in the mode of passion or ignorance keeps one bound to the cycle of repeated birth and death. Now, in verses 7 through 9, Krishna will explain the three types of renunciation. Prescribed duties should never be renounced. If one gives up his or her prescribed duties because of illusion, such renunciation is said to be in the mode of ignorance. There is a common misconception amongst people in general that Bhagavad Gita teaches renunciation of duty, but we have heard several times that Krishna does not recommend one give up prescribed duties as a Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. Indeed, the whole purpose of Bhagavad Gita is Krishna inciting Arjuna to fight, because that is his prescribed duty as a warrior, a Kshatriya. So here Krishna, again, giving the definitive answer as the supreme judge. One gives up prescribed duties out of illusion. That's called the mode of ignorance. Prescribed duties must be performed. Anyone who gives up prescribed duties as troublesome or out of fear of bodily discomfort is said to have renounced in the mode of passion. Such action never leads to the elevation of renunciation. And when one performs his or her prescribed duty only because it ought to be done, and renounces all material association and all attachment to the fruit, one's renunciation is said to be in the mode of goodness. Now, Krishna will explain in verses 10 through 18 the renunciation of work and the renunciation of action. The intelligent renouncer, situated in the mode of goodness, neither hateful of inauspicious work, nor attached to auspicious work, has no doubts about work. It is indeed impossible for an embodied being to give up all activities, but one who renounces the fruits of action is called one who has truly renounced. This reminds us of what Krishna has already said in chapter 3. The soul is always active, either in the conditioned state or the liberated state. But what can be renounced is not work or activity, but the attachment to the fruits. And Krishna already explained in chapter 6 that a real renunciant, a real sannyasi, is one who is not attached as the enjoyer of the fruits or the results of one's activities. For one who is not renounced, the threefold fruits of action, namely the desirable, which lead to the heavenly planets, the undesirable, which leads to the hellish planets, and mixed, all of these accrue after death. But those who are in the renounced order of life have no such result to suffer or enjoy. Again, the only reason we remain bound to this material world is because we are seeing ourselves as the enjoyer of the fruits of our labor. But Bhagavad Gita has repeatedly warned us, no, give the results to Krishna, and in this way you won't have to come back and take birth again to suffer or enjoy the fruits. O mighty armed Arjuna, according to the Vedanta, there are 5 causes for the accomplishment of all action. Now learn of these from me. Vedanta, we heard about this word previously in Bhagavad Gita. Veda, anta. Veda means knowledge, and anta, the end, the conclusion. And Krishna said in chapter 15 that the conclusion of the Vedas is to know Him, is to find Him. The place of action, namely the body, the performer or worker, the various senses or instrumentals, the many different kinds of endeavor, and ultimately the supersoul. These are the 5 factors of action. And yes, most importantly, the supersoul, Krishna in the heart. We learned in chapter 13, the supersoul, Krishna's manifestation in the heart, is doing 2 things: overseeing or witnessing and sanctioning or permitting. So he mentioned that there are 5 factors, but this 5th factor, the supersoul, Daiva, that is the real factor that has to be contended with. Unless the sanction of Krishna is there, one may have all the other 4 items in place, but unless it is sanctioned by God, as it is said, not a blade of grass moves without the sanction of the Almighty God. So that we must always keep in mind, that we need the blessings, the sanction of Krishna. Whatever right or wrong action a person performs by the body, the mind, or speech is caused by these 5 factors. So body, mind, and speech, a sannyasi, a Tridandi sannyasi, is a person who uses body, mind, and speech only for the purpose of realizing Krishna. And we remember in chapter 5, Krishna said the yogis act only for the purpose of purification. And purification means linking with Krishna and rendering service. And in this verse, body, mind, and speech. With my senses, because when it says the body, that means my 5 acquiring senses, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, skin, and the 5 working senses, the hands, legs, throat, genital, and anus. And then, of course, the internal or subtle sense, the mind, speech. All of these should be used to serve Krishna. Krishna continues, therefore, One who thinks him or herself the only doer, not considering the 5 factors, is certainly not very intelligent and cannot see things as they are. This Bhagavad Gita, the purpose is to give the conditioned soul true knowledge. That's what Bhagavad Gita is doing with knowledge, with the sword of knowledge we heard in this Bhagavad Gita. With the sword of knowledge, you can cut the knots of the modes of nature that are binding the conditioned soul. So one should study Bhagavad Gita so that one has real knowledge. Knowledge does not mean material knowledge which only keeps you taking repeated birth and death. Real knowledge is how to escape from this imprisonment of material existence. That is what Bhagavad Gita is trying to give you. The knowledge how to escape this prison life of repeated birth and death and go to the spiritual world, the abode of Krishna, where you can really be free under the shelter of Krishna's lotus feet. One who is not motivated by false ego. False ego means I'm this body, I'm a man, I'm a woman, I am Indian, I'm American. Real ego, true ego, I am Krishna's eternal servant, whose intelligence is not entangled. Entangled in what? In the modes of nature and enjoying the fruits. Though one kills others in this world, does not kill, nor is one bound by his or her actions. Krishna pointed this out at the beginning in chapter 2. The self slays not, nor is slain. Krishna has been reminding Arjuna repeatedly. He wants Arjuna to fight this battle. And Krishna is telling him, since he's doing it in knowledge, and since he is doing it under Krishna's order, then there'll be no reaction. Knowledge, the objective of knowledge, and the knower are the 3 factors that motivate or give impetus to action. So this is interesting. Every endeavor requires some impetus, some cause or motivation. So the 3 things: knowledge, people do things in order to acquire knowledge. And then what is the objective of that knowledge? And of course, the person, the knower. We remember chapter 13, there are 2 knowers of the field of the body. The individual soul knows what's going on in its particular field or body, and Krishna is the super knower because he knows what's going on in each and every body. The senses, the work, and the doer are the 3 components or constituents of action. Now, in verses 19 through 28, Krishna will explain knowledge, action, and workers. He continues. According to the 3 different modes of material nature, there are 3 kinds of knowledge, action, and performer of action. Now, hear of them from me. That knowledge by which one undivided spiritual nature is seen in all living entities, though they are divided into innumerable forms, you should understand to be knowledge in the mode of goodness. This we have heard already, the Brahman conception. This is where everyone should be headed for. By practicing Bhagavad Gita, one gets this Brahman vision. We learned in chapter 5, Pandita Samadarshana. The sage, the learned Brahman, sees equally, irregardless of the different forms, the different bodies. One sees that there is a spirit soul, and of course, this super soul accompanying the spirit soul in each and every body. That knowledge by which one sees that in every different body there is a different type of living entity, you should understand to be in the mode of passion. And that knowledge by which one is attached to one kind of work as the all in all, without knowledge of the truth, and which is very meager, is said to be in the mode of darkness, without knowledge. Knowledge began in chapter 2, when Krishna explained the difference between the body and the soul, matter and spirit, the eternal and the temporary. And we have studied in Bhagavad Gita knowledge, confidential knowledge, more confidential knowledge, and most confidential knowledge. We have studied what is the soul. We have studied what is the super soul. And we have studied what is Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. And we have also learned from Krishna that the topmost knowledge is knowledge of Krishna's service, by which one can get love of Godhead, the ultimate goal of life. And that action, which is regulated and which is performed without attachment, without love or hatred, and without desire for fruitive results, is said to be in the mode of goodness. Again, the mode of goodness has been symptomized so many times by such words as neutrality, equipoised, equibalanced, like that. But action performed with great effort by one seeking to gratify the senses and enacted from a sense of false ego is called action in the mode of passion. Again, false ego. I'm a man. I'm a woman. This is the real problem in this material world. I identify myself as something which I am not, a false dress, a temporary designation. But Bhagavad Gita is trying to get us to the Brahman conception. I'm spirit soul. I'm the fragmental part and parcel servant of Krishna. That is what Bhagavad Gita is trying to educate us. That action performed in illusion, in disregard of scriptural injunctions, and without concern for future bondage or for violence or distress caused to others, is said to be in the mode of ignorance. Yes, without concern for future bondage. Someone in ignorance simply is acting by the dictation of the various senses, the pushings. And because of that, even though one may know that it is going to produce a suffering result, because of so much lust, one is impelled to act sinfully anyway. We remember in chapter 3, Arjuna asked the question, why is one impelled to sinful acts, even sometimes unwillingly? Yes, even though I know it's wrong, because of my lust, I do it anyway. So that's what's being mentioned here, without concern for future bondage. Because when you're tightly under the grip of the modes of nature, you're simply acting impulsively without using intelligence. One who performs his or her duty without association with the modes of nature, without false ego, with great determination and enthusiasm, and without wavering in success or failure, is said to be a worker in the mode of goodness. And the worker who is attached to work and the fruits of work, desiring to enjoy those fruits, and who is greedy, always envious, impure, and moved by joy and sorrow, is said to be in the mode of passion. All these things are part and parcel of identifying with the body, whereas a person in the mode of goodness is detached from the body. And the worker who is always engaged in work against the injunctions of the scripture, who is materialistic, obstinate, cheating, and expert in insulting others, and who is lazy, always morose, and procrastinating, is said to be a worker in the mode of ignorance. We remember at the end of chapter 16, Krishna said that one should know what is duty and what is not duty by the regulations of the scriptures. So a person in the mode of ignorance disregards these teachings of Bhagavad Gita. But we should not be a person in the mode of ignorance. If you want to get out of ignorance, if you want to get out of passion, you must read and hear this Bhagavad Gita every day. Because by the weapon of knowledge only will you become detached from the entanglement of this material world. Bhagavad Gita is giving you that weapon of knowledge. Now take it. Now, in verses 29 through 35, Krishna explains understanding and determination. Listen carefully. O winner of wealth, now please listen as I tell you in detail of the different kinds of understanding and determination according to the three modes of material nature. One thing we are seeing in this Bhagavad Gita, and Krishna already said it, that everything in this material world is under the jurisdiction, the classification of these three modes of material nature.